Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Book to Film. And this week it is First Men in the Moon by H.G. Wells. This was first published in 1901. Yes, and the film with Ray Harryhausen did the special effects in 1964. And this is a short novel, like a lot of early, or most of actually, H.G. Wells, and it's told from the point of view of a his name is Bedford. Um, he sort of has moved to the country or out to a little village in England here because he's had a few failed investments and he's going to be a writer. He's going to write. He's going to write some plays. So he's retired. He's having trouble writing them, and he meets his sort of next door neighbor, in a sense, a scientist named Calver, who is trying to create something called caverite. And during that process, his house gets blown to bits, and probably like the three servants are killed as well. And what it is a substance for metal that it repels, it repels gravity. So, and he wants to go to the moon. And so Bedford is thinking in his mind, pound signs are clicking up. What he could do for the money. So he decides to help him. He befriends him, and Calver has created this sphere that he wants to go to the moon with. And but it's like there's like the whole village is almost like sucked up in this thing, because like when it explodes and the caverite goes up, it's almost like as if it's made a tunnel that'll suck out the atmosphere, and they are a little concerned with that aspect, that if something goes wrong, it could suck the atmosphere out of off the planet. So they're quite concerned at this, but he goes ahead and he makes this sphere, and the way he works it is that when he closes the blinds on it, uh, it's fully operational, and it goes. So you open the blinds, it's less area that's repelling, so they can then, because it's repelling from the earth, so they can direct it and slow it down or speed it up. So they set in to travel to the moon. They take some food, and Cavorite takes some reading materials, and he takes complete Shakespeare because he hasn't read that before. And Bedford hasn't really thought of anything, so he grabs a couple. I think what is it? A couple periodicals, or bound periodicals of Lloyd's. I think one was, and it was with the other one was tidbits. I think just magazines of the time that had humorous material, fiction, and so forth, essays and poetry and things like that. So he takes that, and they take enough food, knowing that it's going to take quite a while. They got the inside of the sphere quite plush, so they travel for quite a long time getting to the planet. So they hit or the moon. They hit the moon. They get onto the moon, and they find there's an atmosphere there. And they've arrived at the nighttime, and there's snow. So, and then shortly after, the sun sort of rises on the moon, and the snow melts, and there's vegetation that grow like a fungus and other vegetations, and they go out in this, like they wait because it's too cold for them to go out. They have to heat their sphere and wait till the sun shines. So they go out, and they start, with the 1/6 gravity, because he goes into how, the distance to the moon, and the 1/6 gravity, and how they can leap around and jump around. So they're doing this, but because these plants have grown up really, really quickly, they get lost. They haven't been taken their bearings, and they've gotten a bit lost of where they are. But they also find that they're near a smaller crater, and it opens up, and what comes out is like there's like these creatures, and they call them moon calves. It's sort of the food source for some beings that live inside the moon, the selenites, and they're sort of ant-like creatures. So they've got these creatures that are hurting the animals, but they've lost the uh, where their sphere is. So they're looking for it, but they're spending a lot of time doing it, and they get hungry. So he grabs some of this fungus, or Bedford does, and he's saying, "Well, no, Calverite says, no, you can't do that because it could be poison." So he eats it, and it seems to be fine. It seems to be good. So they both eat it, and they get intoxicated, as H.G. Wells says. I'll translate that for you. Man, they got stoned on moon shrooms. Yep, they got stoned on moon shrooms, mushrooms. And then they get captured by these selenites that are hurting the moon calves. So they're taken down underneath, and it's warmer, and there's light, and things like that, and they realize that they use like some weapons and stuff like that, and it's gold, it's pure gold, and Bedford's again, ching ching ching, let's bring back some gold and stuff like this, but they're chained, and their chains are made out of gold too, solid gold, but not that heavy on the moon because of 1/6 gravity. And they're given some food and stuff like that. They figure it's the moon calf flesh, and but they do escape. They escape, and um, Bedford, punches or hits one of the selenites, and he just sort of crumbles because their bodies are really, really flimsy because of the light gravity. So he kills like many. He goes on a bit of a killing spree to get out. So they do escape, and they're in the area where the sort of the butchering of these moon calves, and they see that. So they kills a few more, and he gets one of the, like a big staff or something like that. But they still got these gold chains on them. And because they were being taken somewhere, and he just didn't want it because it was over an abyss. So anyway, they pissed off the Selenites, in other words. So they're back up on the they eventually get back up on the surface, and they're looking for the sphere, and they get separated, and but then eventually Bedford does find the sphere, and he's calling for Caver and Caver, and he can't find them. So he rests and eats food in the sphere, and then he goes out looking for him. And he finds a little note, basically from Caver, written in blood, to say that he's injured himself. He's injured his knee, and he can barely crawl, and the Selenites are coming. So and so he can't do anything, and night is coming again, so it's going to get really, really freezing cold. So Bedford gets back to the sphere and leaves. He leaves, and he, like, the idea was that he wanted to get back. He's got the gold chain that he was shackled in, and this gold sphere. So he's going to go back to Earth and then get some help and come and rescue Caver. So he splashes down on like he's able to navigate it, and he splashes down off the coast of England, thankfully, coincidentally. Um, and he gets put up in an inn. Like, he looks pretty rough because they've been up there. What he says is for a couple days, but it's like a couple days on the moon, and time works differently even for the people that are there. It's actually, they've been up for almost 2 months, but it's only like 2 days, 2 moon days. And the time works differently because they think it's just a day, but it's several days. But their metabolism and everything seems to have acclimatized to that somehow, because they figure that they hadn't eaten in a day, but it's probably weeks that they hadn't eaten. But as I say, the metabolism has, and that's an interesting aspect. The metabolism sort of acclimatizes. So he wants to get back, and he leaves his the sphere there on the shore, um, and he goes to this inn, a hotel, to rest up, and he wants to get other people to go back with him, and basically he wants to fill up the sphere as well with gold, save Caver, and come back. But what happens is, what looks like it has happened is a kid of some description gets into the sphere, closes the blinds, and bursts out into space. And so obviously that, he doesn't give much thought to the kid who's going to be killed, or the family, too much. Well, there's a bit of thought, but he figures, well, if the kid closed the hatch, he might have survived out into space, but he doesn't know how to move things. But he sort of figures that he probably didn't close the hatch, so he's dead. Um, so, and he sells the gold, and I think he goes to Italy. It is, and he's writing this story, and he gets it published, I think, in Strand magazine, where this was actually published, or a part of it was. But he gets a letter to say that somebody's getting radio communications from the moon, and it's Calver. So he goes to this place, and he starts hearing that Calver is alive, and they're allowed, like, he's able then to communicate with the Selenites, and he's sending messages. Some of them are partial messages, uh, fragmentary, and then they just quit. But he's sending detailed information about the uh, about their society, and we find it's quite detailed. It's quite interesting. It's sort of like, it's like an ant society that, people are their people, their race. It's bred for usage of the person, because, like, the herders or and something like that, if they're not needed, they go to sleep for a while, until they're needed. And the scientists have bigger brains. They do other, like, there's all sorts of different classes, and they're pigeonholed into these classes. And that's a very big thing about this novel, is that it's a very class structure, and there's a lot of H.G. Wells' socialism, and how things are done, or, well, how he hopes or thinks humans can develop or give warnings. But anyway, I'll get to that a little more in a minute. But yeah, so he gets all this. They get all this. These messages from Caver, and the last, I guess, third of the book. Or at least the last. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say third. Like a good chunk of it. It's like a chapter 22 and onward, and there's natural history of the Selenites. So it goes for like about 40 pages. Let's say that, yeah, 40 pages of these detailed, and it's either transcript of what Caver is saying, or Bedford is uh, is um, is paraphrasing and giving some background. of this, because there's times like Caver is talking about that, he shouldn't have brought Bedford because he caused a lot of problem by killing the Selenites, and there's he gets a bit of a moan in during this, but he also says, like they stop and he says that he shouldn't have given the information about the Caverite and stuff like this, and he let too much, so they don't know what's happened to him. He just sort of it just basically ends with and yeah. So the last message, he's saying that, yeah, he's I was mad to let the Grand Looter know, and then it ends. So um yeah, there's and he says that he's going to publish a scientific paper on this, like a verbatim, every word for word that's from this, but this is for the popular press, or the popular version of it. And then that's where it ends. And I thoroughly love this, and because there's a really good, this is the Penguin edition that was put out in uh 2000, I think it is. Oh wait, 2003 or 5. I can't see that small print in this light. Uh, and it's really good introduction, and they go into quite a bit of detail about the capitalism, imperialism, and gold, because Bedford is just seeing pound signs, not dollar signs, pound signs. Um, and a few other things I really liked was the fact that they have a discussion about communicating with science, but it's like they have this high pitched sort of sound or musical tone, and they're trying to figure out how can you communicate with them, and and Caverite says, well, science, like using the periodical table of elements, which is interesting, and that's what, like, if you the voyageur, there is stuff that they figure that's how, if humans do contact aliens, it will be, the first thing will be through science, and like the atom and stuff like that, and possibly, yeah, the periodical table elements, but problem is they may not have all the elements anyway. But it's an interesting discussion for this, and also too, uh, there's hearkening things, like I liked with regards to back to Jules Verne, because like when they go underneath on the moon, it's there's it's lighted by luminescence, like in there's quite a few things that are borrowed from um, H.G. Wells, and Jules Verne, and he also talked about Trip to the Moon as well. And he tries to couch this all in scientific, like the Calverite, like he gives scientific descriptions, and the sort of anatomical descriptions are quite scientific in a sense. um, and it lends to the possibility, and there's also a lot of comedy in the book too as well. There's a lot of comedy. Now we get to the movie. I'm going too much about the book, but 1964. It was directed by Nathan Juran, who actually won a Oscar for the set direction of How Green Is My Valley, which is a fabulous film. Produced by Charles Schneer, and it stars Lionel Jeffries as Caver, and it's Columbia Pictures that did it. And Edward Judge is is Bedford, and the and also Martha Hare. They as in Journey to the Center of the Earth, they've written in a woman for this, sort of a love interest for Bedford. And it's the screenplays by Nigel Neal and Jan Reed. Nigel Neal was instrumental. Wow, it's quite a big screenwriter for the TV series and films of. I think he did all the films as well for the. Oh, sorry. Just all of a sudden, I just drew a blank on that. I got to check here. Um, uh, don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Um, the Quatermass series is on TV. So a really good writer. Um, and the music was done by Laurie Johnson, who was a band leader, and fabulous music did music, and she did the Avengers, which is a fabulous theme music for the Avengers. Now they do something very interesting with this. Not just I'll get to the fact that they bring in a woman into the story as well. Now the problem that you can get obviously with science fiction is what's written at the time will in time date in some ways because they'll use the information like H.G. Wells was using kind of potential information of what the moon was like. I'm not too sure about the atmosphere aspect, but maybe it was up for grabs at that time. But anyway, obviously, this is made in 1964, and a lot more information had been known about the moon. So the way that they do this, they have sort of a bit of a prologue before they get into the book. And there's a moon landing by United Nations um, uh, expedition. And they do it with a separation of a capsule that goes down, and then they find a flag, the British Union flag, and a little note saying that Caver was claiming the moon in the name of Queen Victoria because it's 1899, and then it goes back to Earth, and the UN is finds Bedford, who's still alive, in a nursing home, and then he goes to tell us the story. And it's somewhat similar, but as I say, there's a woman like Katie Calendar shows up. She's an actress, and Edward Judd plays Bedford, and Lionel Jeffries, as I said, plays Caver. But she shows up because he's sort of running away from creditors, and he's taken this cottage on a disused canal. She shows up and wants to marry him, and he has strung this line that he's got a few debtors, but all his money is wrapped up in boots from the Boer War, and but he owns this cottage. He doesn't own the cottage. He's behind in rent. But she wants to stick by him, but he hasn't really started. He just thought he'd try to write a play, and he hasn't even started other than putting a title in scene one. And but she says, well, why don't you sell the cottage? And he doesn't want to do that because, well, saying, oh, it was given to him by his aunt or his grandmother, family relative. He doesn't want to do that. But then she meets Caver, who's concerned that there's somebody living so close because he knows the danger of his Caverite. It can be very explosive. So he says he'll buy the cottage for like he first says £1,000, which is $5,000 US dollars. Apparently, she figures, and then he says no, he'll do it 2,000, and he gets a little concerned, so he goes to see him, and he learns about the Caverite, and again, it's like right away. Ching, ching, ching. He sees pound signs regarding this, and he says, "Well, I'll sell you the cottage, but I want to invest the money, and I want to be part of this experiment in Caverite." And then but he didn't like the idea of going to the moon. Um, but he says the Caverite says, "Well, there's minerals on the moon like gold," and all of a sudden, again, he's got pound signs in his eyeballs. So, and the place blows up because his workers, unlike in the book that they probably get killed, they just bugger off, go to the pub. They just think he's crazy. But I just love the fact that he's got this nice country house, and English house, and inside in the living room there's this massive blast furnace that he's built, to do his experiments. And so it blows up, but they're in the greenhouse. He's showing him the sphere, and I love the fact that the sphere is guarded. He's got some guards for the sphere, and there happens to be like 4 or 5 geese that he's named. And and then, like, she doesn't want Bedford to go. Katie doesn't, and they're getting ready to do this, and they're just ready to leave, and she's gonna leave him, but then she's back at the cottage saying that she'll wait there as long as she can. If he doesn't show up, then she's leaving. But what comes is the bailiff saying that she's got a summons because she was trying to sell the property, so she storms back to the greenhouse, but they're just ready to take off. And so they have to. So Bedford reaches out and grabs her and tugs her inside, closes it, and then boom, they're off. They're off to the moon. So they're stuck with her, as he says. And Cavers just keeps saying that she's meddlesome and causing problems and all this kind of stuff. And it is humorous because Lionel Jeffries' character is quite humorous. So they get to the moon, and things sort of go similar, but they do wind up meeting the Selenites. The Selenites capture them, um, and they drag the sphere in. They take it apart. They're examining her, and then they learn how to. They got a machine. They learn how to talk or communicate, and they're trying to duplicate the Cavorite, and they learn a little bit about the society, that there is, workers, and they go into hibernation when they're not needed, and then Cavor meets the high lunar leader, and he's talking to him about Earth, and saying, how can this be, like, how do humans work, and then if you can come here, others are going to come here, and then Bedford comes and says, this is not an interview, it's a trial. So he starts shooting up the place, and they've already put back the sphere back together. There's no sort of atmosphere out on the surface. They're wearing divers suits, but their hands are free, and that seems to be okay. And then they find out that there's air underground, and so they're just about ready to leave, and but Cavor doesn't want to leave, so uh, so they leave him because they're being swarmed by the Selenites, and they as it happens, they splash down off of Zanzibar, I guess, in the film. But yeah, and then they go back to the moon, the actual current moon landing, and they find that the Selenites civilization is crumbling because they're all dead. So everything sort of implodes, not implodes, but crumbles down, and they sort of end it with the possibility that it was a bacteria or a germ that because Calver had a cold, so that's the idea that it's cold that having the common cold killed the Selenites, and Nigel Neal says he took that, he put that in, and he took that directly from the War of the Worlds. So and the head office, like when his original script didn't have the female character in, so they said you need a female character, so he puts her in for this, and then he put the tag information at the beginning. And I really I think it works well. Like, even with her, it works well. It is humorous, like maybe a little over the top. The music is really good by Laurie Johnson. It really adds to the suspense and everything, and the comedy as well that goes on. And Lionel Jeffries is fabulous as Cavor. He's a fabulous actor. And actually, he directed a really great film of his shortly after this that he did is he directed and wrote the screenplay for The Railway Children, which is Nesbitt was the author, early 1900s book, and Jenny Agutter was in the film, the great actress, and yeah, so, and there's a few other things. Well, Ray Harryhausen did the stop motion animation, and there's on this the Blu-ray. There's some extras here, and they talk to a few like the grips and other background people that were still alive in the 90s and in the mid teens 2000s, and they talked about a little bit about how Harryhausen did some of the scenes, and he would have these miniatures, but he would also have a plate, and it's before a green screen, so he would project the picture onto the background. But because it was too light and it'd be too much of a burst of light, they apparently put a disc or a coin in the projection of this, and for some reason that didn't, it just, so there was an edge around it, but then it would, you don't see it because it fills in, it somehow filled in the whole picture. I thought that was kind of neat. And also too, they were talking about that the cinematographer Willie Cooper, he always smoked a meerschaum pipe, and he broke it. He was tapping out the stuff on the dolly of the camera, and it's shattered. So the some of the crew decided to buy him a new pipe, and they do, but it was 400 pounds. This is like 1963. 400 pounds, but he said they said he treasured it till his dying day, basically. And also too, because if he did some interesting stuff with lighting, and if he wasn't, after it was filmed, if he didn't really care for too much of the lighting, he didn't think the lighting was right. He was too afraid that by sounds of it, that they would continue or use the scene, so he would blow smoke across across it. So then they go, "What's that? You gotta refilm it," and it's like, "Yep, that's what he wanted." So he refilmed it. And. Yeah, no, it's a lot of stuff, and there was many, hands in the script, but I think they did it well. Like they speeded up stuff a little too much, but that's always going to happen in the film. And as I say, Martha Hare did really well. Like her character, and well, she doesn't do much, to be honest. She's just sort of accidentally along. But it's not, she's not intrusive. I didn't think so much. Like, like, yeah, she didn't really lend anything to the expedition, because otherwise it should be called First Man and Woman in the Moon. And hence it's called In the Moon, because they go into the moon, and that was purposely, well, the book as well. It's not on the moon; it's in the moon. So yeah, and it's like she's a token woman basically in the story, but as a token woman, her character is actually quite good. She's feisty, um, and but yeah, again, it's like she is a token female for the story, and it's quite amazing. Like she was like she looks really young. Like when I'm watching this, I'm thinking, oh, this is a gorgeous woman, and it looks like she's maybe 30 years old. But she was 40, 39, 40 when she made this, and she retired just 10 years after that from film, and did a bit of TV. She did a lot of films. Like she was started just after the Second World War. Sorry, Second World War. She was born in 1924, and she was, I think, the last to die in 2014 at 89. She was actually 89, so just short of her 90th birthday. Uh, and Lionel Jeffries had died, I think, quite earlier. But he's a great actor. He's in so many things. Um, war films. He's just a really good actor, and he was always prematurely old, and he always played older characters, sort of like a Alec Guinness was always playing older characters, way older than he actually was. And Edward Judd did really well in this. I not really. He did a bunch of other science fiction stuff, mediocre films, but this is quite good, and it's filmed what they call it in Dynamation, because that is Ray Harryhausen's um, way of putting animated uh, uh, things, and it can be anything, things, and people in with those things. And it works. Like somebody was saying on this thing, and he sort of used the words that I was trying to sort of figure out how to use. It's like, yes, today they've got all CGI and everything like that. They can make some wonderful special effects, but they're not mutually exclusive. Like like these kind of things is pure artwork, and they to me, one's not better than the other. It's like these are still valid because they still have a look to them, and they look interesting and creative, you know. And you go right back to silent stuff where they did everything in camera or hanging miniatures, and I think that is good. Like they're not mutually exclusive. Like one isn't better for the other. These are still valid and still work. Even it's so they're dated in technology, but not dated in creativity and art, and the atmosphere that they can create if done well. That's the thing. And just going back to the music, Bernard Herrmann was supposed to do the music for this, but I guess he had an argument with the producer, and they parted ways. So Laurie Johnson got the job, and it was filmed all here in the UK at Shepperton Studios with all British actors. So, and that's the other thing. I think Columbia wanted an American in there, so that's Martha Hare becomes the token American as well as the token woman in the film, and this is a beautiful transfer. It's like so far watching Journey to the Center of the Earth and Time Machine and this one. All three, I've never seen them like this because I'd always seen it on TV with poor reception, cut as well, and not the Panavision that this one is in. The more wider screen. Uh, and there's some interesting extras on here. It's got a pretty good commentary. It's more chit chat commentary with Ray Harryhausen when he was still alive. Apparently he died before they could, shortly after they did this. But it's good. And then, as I say, there's some other filmed interviews, or talking to some of the crew and the grips and things like that, which is quite interesting as well. There's there one thing I do disagree, that the one character says, "Oh, the character of Bedford is vastly different in the book that he is in the film," and I'm going, no, they did was they put stuff together. I think it's done quite well. Like rather than you learn things about his greed and stuff like this, and imperialism type aspect of this, because he says, oh, it's white man's burden, to take over the Selenites, that will take it over, and they'll do they'll do our bidding, and they can even send people there, the excess population, and work, and and do it in a sense in the way the Selenites have their regimented society. And that's all in there, and also too a little more conflict. You see it more clearly and quickly in the film between Bedford and Calver, which the conflict really doesn't come out until the end of the book, the end section, where Calver is having um, his transmissions. So it's sort of brought together. So I think it's well done, and but as I say, they've tacked her onto it, so sadly she doesn't really do much. And it's the same as a lot of films, like, oh, we need to have a female character in there. So now they would just gender swap, which doesn't work for me. Then they just wrote in a token character, and they didn't have them do much. um, Thankfully, it doesn't take away from the story, but it would have been nice if they would have created a different kind of character that was actually instrumental for something. That would always be nice, but it's the time. It's the time. She's pretty. That's all that matters. Really, in there, she's female, she's pretty, and they sort of thought that the female viewers would identify with her. And it's the same as on Journey to the Center of the Earth. A gorgeous woman that's on there. You get a love interest. She's instrumental to the story in the Journey to the Center of the Earth, but by happenstance rather than her sort of ability. She doesn't have a huge. They don't write her with many abilities at all. But anyway, that sort of, it's a, you've got to take this and you've got to wear rose colored glasses a lot of times when you read a book that's older, and when you watch a film. You need to realize that it's not the fault of the book, it's not the fault of the writer, it's not the fault of some of the things. It's just sort of the time, and that has to be accepted. And the same as the film, sometimes it's not the fault of the writer to be writing about the mores of the times, and the mores have changed, or something like that. It's not really the fault of the writer, I don't think. But anyway, I've been going for 40 minutes prattling on. So next week we will be doing Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle, the Sherlock Holmes short novel, which is nice. And I'll be hopefully looking at two films: the 1930s Basil Rathbone and the Hammer edition, with Peter Cushing in it. But anyway, take care, BookTube, and I hope everybody's having a good reading weekend. And any comments, concerns, comments, or email me. Take care. Bye.